Hello. So this is Rock the Yard day 4, waiting on Amy to get here. I think she's about to travel, so she's busy. Just a reminder that she's already here. Just a reminder, if you go into my profile link, you can find the link to the Rock the Yard freebie that I'll be sending out on Monday. Sign up for that before Monday. And also a link to a blog post where I'm keeping track of any kind of like resource or video or anything we're mentioning in these lives. And the lives are all saved forever on my Instagram feed and in my Instagram TV channel. Okay. Any minute now.
Yay! Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you great.
Okay, perfect. I'm in the bathroom where the lighting is good.
You look lovely. Do you just wake up like this, or did you have a...
Every morning and then like an hour of prep, but no, but see, I'm staying by myself in a hotel room, so I have no kids. I'm not fixing breakfast for anybody. I have the time to do that.
Take your time. That's nice.
No.
That's really nice.
I'm
Well,
here with you today.
I'm excited to be... The last time we talked like this was when I accidentally video chatted you, and you're the kind of sweet person who answered, even though that was so... I were like, huh.
I remember, I was like, oh, I guess Lindsay wants to talk.
And all of a sudden I hear Amy's voice and I was like, I'm sorry. It was funny.
It was good.
This is Amy Graham from Graham Speech Therapy. If you're not following her, why? I don't understand. So go find her if you don't already follow her. But today, so Amy specializes in speech sound disorders.
I do.
And you have a very interesting trick for R to talk to us about today. And I'm very excited about it because I need you to tell me how to do it, because I've tried it and I didn't do it right.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for doing this. Like the videos, I've gone back and I've watched them, and I love hearing what other SLPs have to say and have tried and has worked in the past, because literally I feel like there is no cookie cutter approach for any R kid. What has worked in the past for 100% of your kids is not going to work for the next one that walks through your door. Mm-hmm. Because I think there's a whole host of underlying issues that can be going on, right?
Yeah.
We have those kids where it's just legit phonological gliding, right? Vowelization. Mm-hmm. You fix the gliding using a phonological approach, and it's like, oh, that was easy, right? Got that down. We eliminated the lip rounding for the gliding. And then you get the kids who that doesn't work for. Yeah. So those are the kids that I tend to see lately. I've had quite a few of these, like I would say in the last month, maybe 4 or 5 older elementary, like mid to older elementary kids who've been in therapy. They've never been able to get an R, like not close. They're not lip rounding. It's not this like pure gliding, like the wed wabbit. It's like the wed wabbit. Mm-hmm. Those kids. Everybody has those kids where you're like, was that an R? Kind of, maybe, I don't know. And then you start in your own ears, because it kind of almost is close enough to sound like it, but it's just, then when you hear somebody else say an R, you're like, oh, no, I think that was distorted.
That's where I grab the kid, we run down the hall to find anyone who's free, and I'm like, can you just listen to this for a second?
Like, am I hearing what I think I'm hearing? Am I not? Know anymore, because we work with so many of these types of kids. So what I have tended to notice, and granted, I specialize in SSD, so I tend to see a lot more of these kids maybe than the typical SLP. So I've kind of been able to try some things with them. And what I've come to find out sometimes with those older kids who like nothing's working, right? Like we've been in therapy for a while. Mm-hmm. They have mostly, I never say all of them are, 100%, because every kid's different. But I would say there tends to be some deficits of proprioceptive abilities for these kids. Like they cannot tell that where their tongue is in their mouth. They might think they can tell. They might tell you like, no, my tongue's up and back. And then they say, ugh. You're like, it can't be. Like, there's no way that tongue is up and back and tensed and all the things that it has to be doing. So when I have had those kids in front of me, they have so habituated this muscle memory, like my tongue goes here when I say R, right? So it's so hard to break that. And when you just say, okay, we're going to work on R, but instead of what you're doing, we're going to like make it tense. We're going to pull it back. Maybe you're going to curl it. Maybe you're not, but you're going to pull it up and back. And then I noticed that with those kids, they're like, okay, got it, got it. And then you say, okay, now say run. And it goes run.
Mm-hmm.
So what I have done is I've taken that out. I've taken that idea of your R sound. It's, if you've followed me or you know anything about how I treat lateral lisps, it's a very similar approach. We take away that idea of we're going to fix this sound that you're doing. And with the R, what I do is I just say, you know what? We're not going to work on R anymore. We're just going to move your tongue around. We're going to practice doing weird stuff with your tongue to see if you can control where it goes. And then we're going to look in the mirror and we're going to maybe we'll prop their jaw open with some bite blocks. I saw you had a great idea for wrapping up some tongue depressors. I love that. I need to do that because I have tended to use just, yes, exactly. How many did you use?
Well, these are the jumbo size, which I need to get some like normal. I think I've got 5 here.
Okay, good to know because I have those because I've had them like move the tongue depressors this way and then they're like their jaw is like moving all over the place. And sometimes we prop their mouth open because when they're doing this, you can't really see what they're doing. You either have to trust what you're hearing or trust what they're telling you.
And it's so you can't. Like whenever I'm modeling R, I'm really good at keeping my mouth huge so they can watch my tongue, but that is not how we say it. So I can't ask them to tell me their R. Yeah,
exactly. And so what I have done, so if we can prop that open so I can see what's going on, so I trust my eyes, then I can look and see what their tongue is doing. And literally that's what I do. I'm like, okay, first of all, I want to see if you can make your tongue fat, like make it stretched out. And so we practice that, just like stretching it out. Sometimes my kids cannot do that. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's practice that. And I'm going to say this is not an oral motor, non-speech oral motor exercise for the purposes of strengthening the tongue so their speech gets better. This is a task that I want to see for control of that tongue. Yeah. That's what we're doing. So we're stretching it out. Then once they can do that, and it usually doesn't take any more than a session, sometimes 2, then we pull it back and up. And sometimes I need to give tactile input, like this spot on your tongue and this spot need to pull back and touch your top molars. And usually that's it. Sometimes I'll say like, make it strong, like you're flexing it, but keep it in that spot. And when they do that, when they're not thinking about it being an R sound, I just say, okay, now freeze, because I can see in their mouth that their tongue's in the right spot, and they turn their voice on. It's and literally those 4 or 5 kids that I've seen in the last month have gone and their eyes are like, wait, did I just say R? Because it sounds so different because they've never done it before. I've had parents sit in my chair because I have parents that stay in and literally cry because they're like, oh my gosh, they've never. And
after years and years and years.
Yes, because they've been working on R, like trying to fix this R sound. And the child was like, I've had kids too tell me, that's where it's supposed to go? I'm like, that's what we've been telling you.
Yeah, wow.
So that's what I mean by like, don't work on R. Let's just work on getting your tongue in the right position and then turning your voice on.
Yeah, I like that.
Does that make sense? I hope.
That does make sense. And I guess I feel like I've tried that with kids before, but I don't know. I feel like they like can see right through it.
Yeah.
So maybe I didn't do it early enough in therapy, or I don't know.
I've had older kids that I've even said this when I talk about my lateral lisp interventions. Some kids have to be reminded 100,000 times, like, stop doing S. We're not working on S. We're making a new sound. Stop trying to do R. And I'm straight up with them. I'm legitimately, I don't want you to do R anymore. Okay. Knock it off. So just, track with me for a minute. Okay. Sometimes they're rolling their eyes, but when they finally feel that position, and sometimes we have to go slow, like, because I don't want them turning their voice on unless I'm pretty confident their tongue is in the right spot.
Yeah.
because that's just gonna like kind of ruin everything we've already practiced. But most of the time, that has been super helpful for those older kids where nothing else has worked. But I will say this sometimes, and I know you talked with Karen about orofacial myofunctional disorders yesterday, those older kids do tend to have difficulty with that use of their tongue for eating, for feeding, for rest. Like it's not always up. I don't typically have to work on that stuff in order to get a good R, but I notice that those kids do tend to have those underlying issues of just not being able to use their tongue in a more effective way for all of these other things, just at rest, eating. So it, sometimes it makes sense that they're not going to figure out how to use it for this super complicated sound.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I love it. I need to give that another try sometime.
Or I'll just come and yell at your kids and you can like, stop working out.
I just like a little recording of you going,
knock it off.
Knock it off, young man. Yeah, that's so funny. I don't know. Do you have time I see a couple of questions that came through. Do you have time? I don't know when you have to catch a flight.
Yeah, I should probably leave in just like 10 or 15 minutes. So, but okay. I'm to go. So yeah, I've got time.
Okay. I saw one come through asking how we might do these techniques over teletherapy. Mm-hmm. And I'll let you start and then
It's not super fun. I'll say that because I've noticed sometimes the audio, it's very dependent on how good the audio is. And it's dependent on how that child is tracking with you. And if you have another parent or another caregiver on the other side, it has worked though. I have seen it. I've done it. I consulted with another SLP who was trying to work with their child and has had the mother, like we were like three of us kind of working together. And if the parent is like right there and they have a flashlight or some kind of light where you can see better in their mouth, or even you kind of talk to the parent about, now this is what I want you to look for. And then you're all up in there, all up in the camera, like, that's where I want the tongue. Or you're using bite blocks. I know I'm like, my mouth is always up in the screen with those kids, but it can work, but it's not ideal. Like I prefer to like real life. It's always better, but if that's all you got, that's all you can do. It can.
Yeah. And it does cut down on the kind of cues and support that you can give a kid when you can't put your hands on them. But you can also, if they do have a parent helping them, like you can give them a list of supplies you want them to bring to the session. Like, I want you to bring some of these popsicle sticks. I want you to bring, peanut butter or whatever kind of little thing you want to use.
I have done that. I'm like, you know what? We need some kind of bite blocks. So go get some popsicle sticks, wrap them up together. Let's bite down. So prop that mouth open, because really those are the same kids who you can even do this and like, but then the minute that mouth closes, I've heard them like, I heard your tongue drop down. Your tongue dropped down. You literally, it just went, well, because you're thinking of R. Mm-hmm. So, I think that constant, like you said, we've tried it. It hasn't really worked, but they're in here, like that child is still thinking, she just wants me to say the R sound. So just constant reminders, like, no, don't do the R. Just keep your tongue in that position and turn your voice. You have to think about. But yeah, parents to do that on their end. Especially if you have a parent who's like really good at hearing it. I've had some parents who they have a hard time, like, I don't know, was it good or not? And that makes it a little trickier.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it is difficult with the audio quality.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's hard enough in person.
I know, right?
For some of these kids. I saw another one come through. It wasn't so much a question as a comment, but that it's harder to do in small groups. And I know you have a background in the schools, so I don't know if you have any advice.
I would tend to try to see those kids, pull them aside individually if I can, at least initially, until they can get stimulable. When you're trying to get a child stimulable for a new sound, whatever that is, it has to be all about that kid. And so, yeah, in group therapy, it's not going to be super effective. But so if you can pull them aside, or maybe pull them, if you have the time, I know I've been in the schools, it's nuts. But if you can have even just like 5 minutes every now and then to pull them aside and be like, you know what, I don't want to say send anybody back early. We don't want everybody getting their time at school, but just find time where you can pull them aside if you can to get them to be stimulable. And then when they're in the group, you're like, remember how we did it? Try it again. And then you can start, practicing word level and that kind of thing. But I think you have to find at least a few minutes to work individually with those types of kids.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's an investment.
It is. It'll make it long run.
Yeah. I like this question. What do you tend to teach more, bunched or retroflex? Or is it based on what you are seeing their tongue trying to do naturally?
I would say I don't even care about bunched or retroflexed, because these kids, I want them to think of the posterior margin of their tongue, because even if it's curled, usually if I'm teaching curled with this type of kid who has bad proprioception, it's a skinny tongue and it's curled and it still is distorted. Like if you make it thin and curl it back, it's still not an R. If you teach bunch it back and it's not, tensed or tight or touching their molars, it's still, you know what I mean? So I don't care. I even tell the kids, like, I don't care what you're doing with your tongue tip. I've had some kids that were taught that way, like just curl your tongue. And I tell them, just, let's not do that right now. Let's just worry about the back of your tongue.
That makes sense.
Back. So sometimes kids will naturally tend to curl. I don't care. That's fine. They naturally won't tend to curl. I don't care. That's fine. Yeah. So it's more about that posterior margin of the tongue is what really gets that R in.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
I like that. Because it does, either way, there is overlap, between bunch and retroflex. So the tongue tip, like, whatever it's going to do.
I've answered one of your posts where you asked the question, like, do you do bunch to retroflex? And I was like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even tell what I'm doing, because I think sometimes it is dependent upon the phonetic context of the word that you're producing, right? The allophonic variations of R that sometimes if there's an L in it, like, I can't even think, like Larry, I don't know. Like maybe it's more curled there because my tongue's really up. But for like green, I don't think it is, because it's so I think it really depends on, the specific word. So I'm less concerned about what they do with their tongue tip anyway.
I feel like I focus on it a little bit more whenever it comes to that first elicitation, to make sure I'm giving them the right cues. But that's when I'm not using your trick about,
and I think that
we're not working on R.
And I'm talking really specifically about those kids who their proprioceptive abilities are just terrible, right? So
they're not gonna.
It's like, you're not gonna get it no matter what I do anyway. So I'm just trying to get them to focus on one aspect of their tongue instead of like the tongue tip and the back of the tongue. Like, just worry about the back, and your tongue tip's gonna do what the tongue tip's gonna do. Whatever we try.
I like that. Do you have time for one more?
Yeah.
Okay. This one about how do you explain the concept of turning your voice on to kids who aren't understanding what it means?
That we do it just by itself. Like if you need to back up and just do ah, like a vowel, you can just back up and do that. So everybody practice, when we put our fingers here, we say ah, and then you could maybe contract. Now we're going to turn it off. Ah. That's if you need to back up and work on that understanding just the vocabulary of that, then totally fine. I will say this, I've even had some kids who the voicing was too tricky. So I would say, okay, then just breathe. Don't turn your voice on, just breathe. And so we like, and so it really, you're whispering the R sound is what that turns into if it's just breathe. And even he was like, oh my gosh, I heard it.
I haven't tried that. Whisper the R sound. Yeah.
It's like if the voicing is too complicated, fine. Just breathe it.
Yeah.
That kind of eased him into being able to voice. So it was like, he's like doing it.
It does blow my mind how many kids I've had. Like, I feel like we get the placement, but the second the voice turns on, everything just falls.
Yeah.
So I love, like, just taking it one step at a time.
Yeah. Just breathe. In fact, I'm like, well, just breathe then.
Yeah.
And that like eliminates that extra step to where you want to make that R sound, right? And so that tongue immediately drops anyway.
Mhm.
So yeah, maybe I should have said that. Just breathe. Don't even turn your voice on. Just breathe.
Did that just come up right now? This is a
Song that I could pair it with that. Just breathe. Who sings that? I can't remember.
it's a woman. I can.
There's my next reel.
I love it. Okay, that looks like all our questions. Was there anything you wanted to add on? Are there actually, I'm sure you have a therapy video of you using this. We're not doing your R.
I think I do actually.
Okay.
Or maybe maybe I think I have a therapy video where I'm describing what the tongue does, but I'm not sure if I'm saying don't do R. So maybe I'll try to do that. Maybe try to film in the next few weeks, because I start therapy. I've taken a few weeks off. I'm starting therapy in a couple weeks. I'll see if I can get it, because I think it's super, super helpful. So,
I would love, if you think about it, send me the link and I'll put that in this blog post that I'm compiling of helpful resources that were mentioned in this, in the Instagram lives.
I absolutely will.
Thank you. And it was Faith Hill, Just Breathe.
Yes, that's it.
I can hear it in my head. I won't.
Right. Love it. Love it.
Well, safe travels, Amy. Thank you so much.
I was so happy to do this, Lindsay. You're doing good work, because not one thing's going to work for everybody. We need a whole bunch of ideas.
Absolutely. It takes the whole village, for sure.
For sure, for sure. And I can't wait to listen to yours tomorrow.
Yeah. Alone. I've never done a live all alone.
Oh, you'll be awesome.
You can ask something if it's super fast.
Get those fingers typing.
Go, 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 go. Oh, I don't see anything.
How's your baby sleeping? Ah. Bad question. Bad note to end on.
My spreadsheet is out of this world.
I'm sorry.
She just keeps going through. Oh, okay. Sorry, sir. Or I don't know if you're, I don't know. I read MKE, and that's one part of my dad's email address, so I went straight to mail. Sorry. But we're not talking about echolalia. We're just talking about R. Okay. We're done. Thank you so much, Amy.
All right. Out with you guys.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.